Since there are infinite varieties in heaven, since no community and in fact no individual is just like any others, heaven is therefore divided overall, more specifically, and in detail. Overall, it is divided into 2 kingdoms, more specifically into 3 heavens, and in detail into countless communities. We will now discuss the details. They are called kingdoms because heaven is called the kingdom of God. There are angels who accept the divine nature that emanates from the Lord on a deeper level, and angels who accept it less deeply. The ones who accept it more deeply are called heavenly angels, and the ones who accept it less deeply are called spiritual angels. Heaven is therefore divided into 2 kingdoms, one called the heavenly kingdom and the other called the spiritual kingdom. Because the angels who make up the heavenly kingdom accept the Lord's divine nature on a deeper level, they are called more inward or higher angels. The heavens they constitute are therefore called more inward or higher heavens. We use the words higher and lower as a way of referring to more inward things and more outward things. The love that envelops people in the heavenly kingdom is called heavenly love, and the love that envelops people in the spiritual kingdom is called spiritual love. Heavenly love is love for the Lord, and spiritual love is thoughtfulness toward one's neighbor. Further, since all good is a matter of love, since whatever we love is good in our estimation, the good of one kingdom is called heavenly and the good of the other spiritual. We can see from this the way in which these 2 kingdoms are distinguished from each other, namely, that it is like the way the good of love for the Lord is distinguished from the good of thoughtfulness toward our neighbor, since the former good is a deeper good and the former love is a deeper love. Heavenly angels are more inward angels and are called higher. The heavenly kingdom is also called the Lord's priestly kingdom, in the Word, his dwelling. And the spiritual kingdom is called his royal kingdom, in the Word, his throne. The Lord in the world was called Jesus because of his heavenly divine nature, and the Christ because of his spiritual divine nature. The angels in the Lord's heavenly kingdom far surpass the angels of the spiritual kingdom in regard to wisdom and splendor, because they accept the Lord's divine nature on a deeper level. They live in love for him, and are therefore more intimately united to him. The reason for their excellence is that they have accepted divine truths directly into their lives, and continue to do so, rather than taking them into memory and thought first, the way spiritual angels do. This means they have them engraved on their hearts and grasp them, virtually see them within themselves. They never calculate whether or not they are true. They are like the people described in Jeremiah. In Isaiah, they are called the people who have been taught by Jehovah. In John, the Lord himself teaches that those who are taught by Jehovah are the ones who are taught by the Lord. We have stated that they have more wisdom and splendor than others, because they have accepted divine truths directly into their lives and continue to do so. The moment they hear them, they intend them and live them out. They do not refer to them in memory and consider whether they are true. People like this know instantly, from an inflow from the Lord, whether the truth they are hearing is actually true. The Lord flows directly into our intentions, and indirectly through our intentions into our thinking. In other words, the Lord flows directly into what is good within us, and indirectly through that good into what is true. That is, we call good whatever is a matter of intent and therefore of action, while we call true whatever is a matter of memory and therefore of thought. However, as long as any truth is in memory and therefore in thought, it is neither good nor living. It is not assimilated into the person, because a person is a person by virtue of intent primarily and cognitive abilities secondarily, not by virtue of cognitive abilities apart from volition. Since there is such a difference between angels of the heavenly kingdom and angels of the spiritual kingdom, they do not live together or associate with each other. They are granted communication only through intermediate angelic communities called heavenly spiritual. It is through them that the heavenly kingdom flows into the spiritual kingdom. The result of this is that while heaven is divided into two kingdoms, they still make a single whole. The Lord always provides intermediate angels like these through whom there can be communication and union. There are three heavens very clearly distinguished from each other. There is a central or third heaven, an intermediate or second one, and an outmost or first. These follow in sequence and are interdependent, like the highest part of the human body, the head, the middle or torso, and the lowest or feet, or like the highest, middle, and lowest parts of a house. The divine life that emanates and comes down from the Lord is in this kind of pattern as well. It is this necessity of design that determines the tripartite arrangement of heaven. The deeper levels of the human mind and disposition are in a similar pattern as well. We have a central, intermediate, and outmost nature. This is because when humanity was created, the whole divine design was gathered into it, to the point that as to structure, the human being is the divine design and is therefore a heaven in miniature. For the same reason, we are in touch with heaven as to our inner natures and come into the company of angels after death, of angels of the central or the intermediate or the outmost heaven, depending on our acceptance of divine good and truth from the Lord during our earthly lives. The divine nature that flows from the Lord and is accepted in the third or central heaven is called heavenly, and the angels there are consequently called heavenly angels. The divine nature that flows from the Lord and is accepted in the second or intermediate heaven is called spiritual, and the angels there are consequently called spiritual angels. The divine nature, though, that flows from the Lord and is accepted in the outmost or first heaven is called natural. However, since the natural of that heaven is not like the natural of our world, but has something spiritual and heavenly within it, that heaven is called spiritual natural or heavenly natural, and the angels there are called spiritual natural or heavenly natural. The angels called spiritual natural are the ones who accept an inflow from the intermediate or second heaven, which is the spiritual heaven, while the angels called heavenly natural are the ones who accept an inflow from the central or third heaven, which is the heavenly heaven. Spiritual natural and heavenly natural angels are different from each other, but they constitute one heaven because they are all on the same level. There is an outside and an inside to each heaven. The angels who are in the inner region are called inner angels, while the ones in the outer region are called outer angels. The outside and the inside in the heavens, or in each particular heaven, are like our own volitional side and its cognitive aspect. Everything volitional has its cognitive side. Neither occurs without the other. The volitional is like a flame, and the cognitive like the light that it sheds. It needs to be quite clear that it is the inner nature of angels that determines which heaven they are in. The more the deeper levels have been opened, the more inward the heaven they are in. There are 3 inner levels of every angel and spirit, and of every person here as well. The people whose 3rd level has been opened are in the central heaven, while the people whose 2nd or 1st only have been opened are in the intermediate or the outmost heaven. The deeper levels are opened by our acceptance of divine good and divine true gifts. People who are actually affected by divine true gifts and let them directly into their lives, into their intentions, and therefore into act, are in the central or 3rd heaven, located there according to their acceptance of what is good in response to truth. People who do not let such gifts directly into their intentions, but into their memory, and from there into their discernment, intending, and doing them as a result of this process, are in the intermediate or second heaven. People who live good moral lives, though, and believe in the divine with no particular interest in learning, are in the outmost or first heaven. We may therefore conclude that the state of our inner natures is what constitutes heaven, and that heaven is within each one of us, not outside us. This is what the Lord teaches in saying, "All perfection increases as we move inward and decreases as we move outward, because more inward things are closer to the Lord and intrinsically purer, while more outward things are more remote from the Lord and intrinsically cruder." Angelic perfection consists of intelligence, wisdom, love, and everything good, with happiness as their result. It does not consist in happiness without these former qualities, since happiness without them is merely superficial, with no depth. Since the inner reaches of angels of the central heaven are opened at the third level, their perfection far surpasses that of angels in the intermediate heaven, whose inner reaches are opened at the second level. By the same token, the perfection of angels of the intermediate heaven surpasses that of angels of the outmost heaven. Because of this difference, an angel of one heaven cannot gain admission to angels of another heaven. Someone from a lower heaven cannot come up, nor can someone from a higher heaven come down. Anyone who comes up is seized by anxiety, even to the point of pain, and cannot see the people who are there, let alone talk with them. Anyone who comes down from a higher heaven loses her or his wisdom, stammers, and loses confidence. There were some people from the outmost heaven who had not yet been taught that heaven is a matter of angels' deeper qualities, but believed that they would find greater angelic happiness if only they were admitted to the heaven where these angels lived. They were allowed to visit them, but when they arrived, even though there were a great many angels there, they did not see anyone, no matter where they looked. The deeper levels of the newcomers had not been opened at the level where the more inward angels lived, so they had no sight. Before long they were seized by heart pain and eventually could scarcely tell whether they were still alive or not. So they quickly made their way back to the heaven they had come from, and were delighted to be among their own people. They vowed that they would never again crave conditions that were higher than the ones that suited their own way of life. It is different when the Lord raises people from a lower heaven into a higher one so that they can see its splendor, which happens quite often. Then they are prepared in advance and provided with mediating angels who serve as agents of communication. We can see from all this that the three heavens are quite distinct from each other. However, people who live in the same heaven can associate with anyone there, and their delight in getting together is in proportion to the similarity of the values they are devoted to. There will be more about this, though, in later chapters. Even though the heavens are so distinct from each other that angels of one heaven cannot have regular dealings with angels of another, still the Lord unites all the heavens by means of a direct and an indirect inflow. The direct inflow is from him into all the heavens, and the indirect is through one heaven into another. In this way, the Lord brings about a unity of the three heavens. They are all linked together, from the first to the last, so that nothing exists that is not connected. Anything that is not connected to the first by some intermediary does not endure, but disintegrates and becomes nothing. Anyone who does not know how the divine design is arranged in levels cannot grasp how the heavens are distinguished from each other, or for that matter, what the inner person and the outer person are in an individual. The only idea most people in this world have about inner and outer things is one of continuity, or of a coherence along a continuum from the finer to the coarser. Inner and outer things are not arranged in a continuum, though, but with definite boundaries. There are two kinds of levels, continuous and non-continuous. Continuous levels are like decreasing levels of light from a flame all the way to darkness, or like decreasing amounts of sight from objects in the light to objects in the shade, or like levels of density of the atmosphere from the lowest to the highest. These levels are measured by distance. Non-continuous or distinct levels, though, are separated like prior and posterior, cause and effect, producer and product. Anyone who looks closely will discover that there are these kinds of stages of production and composition in everything in the world, no matter what, with one thing arising from another, and a third from that, and so forth. People who do not acquire a grasp of these levels have no way of knowing how the heavens are arranged, or the arrangement of our own deeper and more outward abilities, or the difference between the spiritual world and the natural world, or the difference between our spirit and our body. This also means they cannot understand what correspondences and images are, or what inflow is like. People who are attentive only to their physical senses do not grasp these differences, but regard them as instances of increase and decrease on the model of continuous levels. As a result, they cannot think of the spiritual except as a kind of purer nature, so they stand outside, far removed from intelligence. Lastly, let me disclose a particular secret about the angels of the three heavens that people have not been aware of until now because they have not understood levels. It is this, that within every angel and within every one of us here, there is a central or highest level, or a central and highest something, where the Lord's divine life flows in first and most intimately. It is from this center that the Lord arranges the other, relatively internal aspects within us that follow in sequence according to the levels of the overall design. This central or highest level can be called the Lord's gateway to the angels, or to us, his essential dwelling within us. It is this central or highest level that makes us human and distinguishes us from the lower animals, since they do not have it. This is why we, unlike animals, can be raised up by the Lord toward himself, as far as all the deeper levels of our mind and character are concerned. This is why we can believe in him, be moved by love for him, and therefore see him. It is why we can receive intelligence and wisdom and talk rationally. It is also why we live forever. However, what is arranged and provided by the Lord at this center does not flow into the open perception of any angel, because it is higher than angelic thought and surpasses angelic wisdom. These, then, are some of the general facts about the three heavens. In the following pages, we will need to say more about each heaven in particular. The heavens are made up of countless communities. The angels of any given heaven are not all together in one place, but are separated into larger and smaller communities depending on differences in the good effects of the love and faith they are engaged in. Angels engaged in similar activities form a single community. There is an infinite variety of good activities in heaven, and each individual angel is, so to speak, his or her own activity. The distances between angelic communities in the heavens also vary as their activities vary, in general and in detail. This is because the only cause of distance in the spiritual world is the difference of the state of our more inward natures. In the heavens, then, differences in the state of love. When communities are very different, the distance between them is great. When the difference is slight, the distance is slight. Likeness makes for unity. All the individuals in a single community are distanced from each other by the same principle. The better ones, that is, the ones who are more complete in goodness and therefore in love, wisdom, and intelligence, are in the center. Those who are less outstanding surround them at distances graded in proportion to their lessened perfection. It is like the way light decreases from a center toward a circumference. The ones who are in the middle are in the greatest light, while the ones who are toward the perimeter are in less and less. Kindred souls gravitate toward each other spontaneously, as it were, for with each other they feel as though they are with their own family at home, while with others they feel like foreigners, as though they were abroad. When they are with kindred souls, they enjoy the fullest freedom and find life totally delightful. We can see from this that the good gathers everyone together in the heavens, and that angels are differentiated by what good they do. Still, it is not the angels who gather themselves, but the Lord, the source of all that is good. He leads them, unites them, differentiates them, and keeps them in freedom to the extent that they are engaged in what is good. So he keeps every individual in the life of her or his own love, faith, intelligence, and wisdom, and therefore in happiness. Further, people of similar quality all recognize each other there, just the way people in this world recognize their neighbors and relatives and friends, even though they may never have seen each other before. This happens because the only relationships and kinships and friendships in the other life are spiritual ones, and are therefore matters of love and faith. I have often been allowed to see this when I was in the spirit, and therefore out of body and in the company of angels. Then some of them looked to me as though I had known them from infancy, while others seemed totally unfamiliar. The ones who looked as though I had known them from infancy were the ones who were in a state like that of my own spirit, while the unfamiliar ones were in dissimilar states. All the individuals who make up a particular angelic community have a general facial resemblance, but differ in detail. I could grasp this general similarity and particular difference to some extent on the basis of similar situations in this world. We know that every race has a general similarity about the face and eyes that enables us to recognize it and distinguish it from other races, and that the same is even more true from one family to another. This holds true much more perfectly in the heavens, because there all the deeper feelings are visible and shine forth from the face there being their outward and graphic form. It is not possible in heaven to have a face that differs from our feelings. I have also been shown how this general similarity is varied in detail in the individuals of a single community. There was a kind of angelic face that appeared to me, and this was varied according to the qualities of affections for the good and the true that were characteristic of the individuals in a particular community. These variations lasted quite a while, and through it all I noticed that the same general face remained constant as a basis, and that everything else was simply derivations and elaborations from it. In this way, too, I was shown the affections of the whole community that occasioned the differences in the faces of its members, for as already noted, the faces of angels are their deeper qualities taking form, which means they are forms of the affections proper to their love and faith. This is also why an angel of outstanding wisdom sees the quality of others instantly from their faces. In heaven, no one can conceal inner character by facial expression and pretend, much less lie and deceive others by guile and hypocrisy. It does sometimes happen that hypocrites steal into heavenly communities, hypocrites trained in hiding their inner nature and arranging their outward appearance in the benevolent form they present in public, thereby misleading angels of light. However, they cannot stay around very long. They begin to feel inner discomfort and torment. Their faces start to turn blue, and they almost faint, changes caused by their opposition to the life that is flowing in and affecting them. So they promptly cast themselves back into the hell of people like themselves and no longer dare to climb up again. These are the people meant by the man who was discovered among the dinner guests without a wedding garment and was thrown out into outer darkness. All the communities communicate with each other, but not through open interaction. Actually, not many individuals leave their own community to go to another, because leaving their community is like leaving themselves or their life and crossing over into another that does not suit them. Rather, they all communicate by the outreach of the auras that emanate from the life of every individual. An aura of life is an aura of affections based in love and faith. This reaches out far and wide into surrounding communities, farther and wider as the affections are deeper and more perfect. Angels possess intelligence and wisdom in proportion to this outreach. The ones who are in the most outmost heaven and therefore at the center have an outreach into all of heaven, so that there is a communication of everyone in heaven with each individual and of each individual with everyone. We will have more to say about this outreach below, though, when we discuss the heavenly form in which angelic communities are arranged, and also when we discuss the wisdom and intelligence of angels. For all the outreach of affections and thoughts follows this form. We have noted above that there are larger and smaller communities in the heavens. The larger ones consist of tens of thousands of individuals, the smaller of some thousands, and the smallest of hundreds. There are even people who live alone, house by house, so to speak, and family by family. Even though they live apart, they are still arranged in the same pattern as those who live in communities, with the wiser of them in the center and the simpler at the periphery. They are very closely under the Lord's guidance and are the best of angels.